It all began on a sunny Saturday morning when I thought my weekend would be peaceful. I had just finished sipping my coffee on the porch when I noticed her. A woman, mid-40s, hair perfectly coiffed, glaring at my property line like it was a personal affront. She was the neighborhood type people whisper about. The one who always had an opinion, even when it wasn't asked for. And on this day, she had a mission. She was Karen. Karen marched over with a folder clutched to her chest, like it contained the secrets of the universe. Her voice was sharp, demanding, and unnervingly confident. I need to see proof that this land belongs to you. You can't just put up that fence without permission, she snapped. There was no polite preamble, no casual hello, just pure confrontation. I took a deep breath, trying to gauge how serious she was. Normally, I avoid neighborhood drama, but something about her energy felt different, like she was convinced I had stolen this land from her, and the folder she carried was her weapon. As she waved the documents around, I realized she wasn't just upset. She thought she was legally entitled to question me. Karen began reciting legal jargon she clearly didn't understand. She talked about zoning, encroachments, property rights, even citing some obscure HOA regulation. But as I listened, I noticed a pattern. She was desperate to intimidate, to make me falter. Her strategy was obvious: bully me into submission. I knew I had to respond carefully. Losing my temper would only give her the upper hand, but remaining passive might embolden her. That's when I remembered the property map I had tucked away in my study, a detailed record of the land boundaries, surveyor stamps and signatures. This wasn't just any map, it was official, undeniable, and exactly what I needed to end this confrontation. Karen leaned closer, eyes narrowing, clearly expecting some hesitation. Where is it? Show me right now, she demanded. The air felt tense. Every neighbor's step seemed louder, every bird chirp more pronounced. This wasn't just about property lines. This was a test of patience, composure, and evidence. I walked calmly to my study, retrieved the map, and unfolded it slowly. Karen's eyes widened as she scanned the details, her confident demeanor faltering. The map didn't just show boundaries. It confirmed my ownership in a way no words could challenge. For the first time, I saw hesitation in her gaze, a flicker of uncertainty, where previously there had only been confrontation. She opened her mouth to speak, then paused. The silence was deafening. My hand rested on the map, and I realized in that moment, evidence had power. Real, undeniable, unarguable power. And Karen, who came in with demands and accusations, was suddenly quiet. Karen's sudden silence didn't last long. Almost immediately, she began fuming, her face turning a shade red that made it clear she wasn't used to being proven wrong. But what happened next caught me off guard. As she glared at the map, a few neighbors, drawn by her loud voice and dramatic gestures, began stepping out of their homes. Some leaned on their fences, curious. Others just paused mid-walk, unsure if they wanted to witness the chaos. Karen straightened her posture, trying to reclaim authority, and shouted, "This map doesn't prove anything. I still want to see official records." Her tone was harsh, almost theatrical. But the more she spoke, the more the neighbors began to take notice. Not of her anger, but of the undeniable evidence displayed in front of them. They could see the property lines, the surveyor's stamps, and even the legal notations clearly showing my ownership. One neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, from across the street, stepped forward cautiously. "Karen," she said, her voice calm but firm, "I think the map already shows what you're asking for. Maybe it's time to step back." Her words were simple, yet their effect was enormous. Karen looked around, realizing her audience was silently judging her. For the first time, her theatrical confidence began to crack. She attempted to argue further, pointing at small details on the map and questioning their authenticity. But the map was official. Every corner, every line, every stamp could be verified. I calmly explained the survey process, detailing how every measurement had been recorded and legally certified. With every word I spoke, Karen's attempts to intimidate grew weaker. Her voice lost volume, her gestures became smaller, almost desperate. By now, more neighbors had gathered, some shaking their heads, others whispering among themselves. Karen's strategy had backfired spectacularly. What she thought would be a private confrontation had turned into a public spectacle, and the evidence was on my side. She realized that the more she protested, the more ridiculous she looked. Finally, she paused, flipping through her folder as if searching for some hidden trump card that didn't exist. But there was nothing. The truth was right in front of her. My ownership wasn't just my word. It was documented, certified, and supported by witnesses who were now quietly observing the situation. Her silence lingered, tense and heavy. The map had done its work, and the energy of the gathering crowd amplified its impact. Karen's demands had met an unmovable wall, one that no shouting, pleading, or bullying could break. The confrontation had shifted. No longer a question of intimidation, but a lesson in evidence and patience. Karen finally muttered something under her breath, glanced around nervously, and retreated a few steps. Her presence was still commanding, but the undeniable fact was clear. The map had silenced her. Karen's retreat was brief. As she stood a few feet back, fuming but calculating, I could see she wasn't done. She was the type of person who refused to admit defeat, even when the evidence was overwhelmingly against her. And just like that, she began plotting her next move. Her eyes scanned the neighbors, as if searching for an ally. Someone who might validate her anger or lend her a shred of credibility. "I don't accept this!" she shouted suddenly, her voice cutting through the quiet murmur of the gathering crowd. She slammed her folder down on the ground, papers spilling out like fallen soldiers in a battle she thought she could win. "You can't just show me some map and expect me to shut up," she yelled, pointing at me with a finger that trembled slightly, betraying her frustration. A few neighbors exchanged wary glances. Some tried to intervene, reminding her calmly that the property map was official and undeniable. But Karen wasn't listening. Her desperation had turned into performance art, each word sharper than the last, each gesture more dramatic. It was clear she needed one final attempt to regain control, a last shot at intimidating me, the crowd, and even herself into believing she was in the right. She lunged forward suddenly, as if to snatch the map from my hands. "Let me see the rest of the documents. I want the deed," she demanded. Her aggression startled a couple of neighbors, and a low murmur ran through the crowd. I stayed calm, carefully holding the map in front of me, ensuring it remained fully visible. "I had anticipated this. Karen," I said, my voice steady, "everything you're asking for is right here. The surveyor's stamp, the notations, and the legal approval are all visible. There's nothing more you need to see." I unfolded the map further, revealing even more details, including the precise coordinates and boundary markers that left no room for argument. Her face turned an almost comical shade of red, a mix of anger and embarrassment. The crowd was silent now, all eyes on her. Every attempt to challenge me was met with undeniable proof, and slowly her theatrics began to crumble. Karen realized she had exhausted every tactic, yet she had no evidence to support her claims. Finally, she backed away, clutching her folder like a shield, muttering complaints that were lost in the quiet authority of the moment. She had tried everything: bullying, public performance, intimidation, but the truth had remained unshakable. The property map had done more than just prove ownership. It had exposed the desperation behind the anger. Karen's defeat was silent but unmistakable. She lingered at the edge of the crowd, muttering complaints that nobody paid attention to, her attempts at authority evaporating in the presence of undeniable evidence. The property map had not only silenced her demands, but had also shifted the balance of perception in the neighborhood. What was once a confrontation had transformed into a public lesson about proof, patience, and composure. Neighbors began to relax, some nodding to one another, others commenting quietly on the absurdity of the display they had just witnessed. Mrs. Thompson, who had spoken up earlier, smiled faintly and said, "It's amazing what a little evidence can do." Others whispered about how Karen always tried to assert control, but rarely faced someone prepared and confident enough to stand their ground. The consensus was clear. This wasn't just about property. It was about character. Karen, realizing she had lost the audience, finally made her retreat. She turned sharply and marched toward her house, shoving her folder under her arm, muttering under her breath, and occasionally glancing back as if to ensure I hadn't done anything else illegal. The neighbors watched her go, some shaking their heads, others chuckling quietly at her theatrics. What had started as a simple property dispute had become a neighborhood spectacle, and Karen's reputation had suffered a significant blow. I returned the map to my study, folding it carefully. Though the confrontation was stressful, it had reinforced a critical lesson: preparedness and calm. Authority can dismantle even the loudest and most aggressive challenges. The property map wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a shield, a weapon of truth, and a reminder that facts always hold more power than anger or theatrics. In the days that followed, the neighborhood seemed different. People greeted me with subtle nods of respect, sometimes even stopping to ask about the confrontation. It wasn't about seeking drama anymore. It was about acknowledging that evidence, clarity, and patience could overcome even the most relentless opposition. Karen, meanwhile, was noticeably quieter. Her attempts to dominate conversations diminished, replaced by cautious interactions. The dramatic, confrontational energy that had defined her presence was now subdued, replaced by wary observation. Looking back, it was clear that the confrontation had a lasting impact. The property map had done more than prove ownership. It had exposed character, tested patience, and reinforced the value of calm, fact-based resolution. Karen may have thought she could intimidate, but the neighborhood saw something far more powerful. Truth, documentation, and composure standing firm against entitlement and aggression. In the end, the map had spoken louder than her shouting ever could. The lesson was simple but unforgettable. When confronted with aggression, evidence is the ultimate authority, and no amount of anger can override it. Karen had learned it the hard way, but everyone else had learned it without raising their voice. If you thought Karen's meltdown was unbelievable, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the wildest HOA stories. Comment below. What would you do if someone challenged your property?